Welcome to the Denver Gazette Sports Podcast. I am your host, Chris Schmedeke, and today we are brought to you by Applewood Plumbing, Heating, and Electric. They have been serving Denver residents for over 50 years. They're the proud sponsor of this podcast, as well as the Colorado Avalanche, which we are talking about today, as I am joined by Kyle Fredrickson. Kyle, long time no talk. How you been?
I'm doing pretty well, at the practice facility now, watching little kids get their skate on here below me as I get some work done. It's not a bad office, I'll say that.
Which is always hilarious to think about where the Avs practice is also where
Right,
there's like
right.
kids playing pee wee hockey. But that's for another day. Let's talk about the news of the day, which is Gabe Landeskog was back on the ice today. You talked to Jared Bednar about that as well. So what's your takeaway from that?
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise in terms of the media not knowing when this day would come, but we kind of knew that at some point it was going to have to come, and that's the day when Gabe Landeskog is out skating during an Avalanche practice time. And Jared Bednar told us today that today was Landy's first day skating since that knee surgery. And I did a little bit of math looking back, and it's 8 months exactly to the day that Landeskog had that knee cartilage replaced. And here he is, back skating, doing very light work, but still a reassuring sign, right? This doesn't do anything to change his timeline for when they expect him back. They've already ruled out this regular season. The playoffs still remain open, but there's a lot of time between now and this spring and summer to figure out if Landeskog's even anywhere close to being ready to play and being ready to play at an elite level when the Avs really need him. But, when you're thinking about where he needs to be to even have that hope, Bednar said that the timeline is good. Landeskog is right where he needs to be in terms of where the team expected him to be as well. No surprises to this point. And I think there's also some reassurance this time around because it's not a guessing game, right? A year ago it was like, oh man, like, is this guy going to be able to come back? Now, they had the surgery, they did the thing that they were hoping to avoid, but hey, you had to do what you had to do to come back. And now he's on this ladder essentially to being a guy who can skate every day and then skate with the team and skate with contact. And that's really when we'll have a conversation of, hey, how close is this guy to being back? So a long ways out, but it sure, it felt nice just to see him back on the ice, just where Landeskog ought to be.
You know, do you think it's beneficial for them to even think about bringing him back this year?
It's hard for me to say.
He's
It
been out a
really is.
long time.
Right. He's been out a long time. I mean, it's been since game 6 of the Tampa Bay series when this guy is just limping every single shift to try to get the job done. It's been, to your point, how quickly is he going to acclimate back on this team with so many new players? I mean, this is a different team than when Landeskog was on it in previous years. So, I don't think if it's a failure on anyone's part if they do wait until the next season to see if he's ready to play again, just because that is a big expectation to put on a guy. But let's say the Avs feel like they're one player away, from winning a cup. They're deep into their playoff run at that point, and Landeskog has had a bunch of work with the team. I think that's the one scenario where you think, all right, like, let's get him in the game if we feel like he's get the missing piece to try to go win a championship. But anything short of that, I mean, you don't want to leverage the guy's future or his timeline for feeling 100% just because you're trying to win a few games, unless it's the very last one.
Of course. All right, so let's talk about right now the current team. They're 8-2 in their last 10 since that weird loss at Chicago, 3-2. Those losses were there's that 8-4 ugly loss to Florida here at home, and then that weird overtime loss to Arizona. Was that when they were up 4-0 and lost? Was that correct?
Yeah, they blew a big lead out in the desert.
Yeah. So, but other than that, I mean, they've really been on a roll. So, what's been kind of the keys of this recent winning streak? I mean, these against good teams too.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, usually we're like waffling back and forth on the
Yeah.
podcast. The sky is falling. These guys are the best. They have sustained some really good play over the last 15 games to the point where now I can kind of see why the sports books still have the Avs as, their number one pick right now to win the cup in terms of those betting odds are concerned. They're a complete team that's finding different ways to win. Last night against the Vegas Golden Knights, they shut them out. Georgiev's second shutout of the year, where they shut down a very powerful offensive team with strong forwards, and the forecheck has been so strong the way this team has played physically physical lately. And they've also been able to go out and get 4, 5, 6 goals on nights when you need it as well. And I mean, Nathan MacKinnon's just driving the ship right now in ways that we haven't seen really in his entire career. You know, at the midway point of the season, I think you ask around the league, he is the guy that people are talking about for the Hart Trophy right now. And it's not a surprise because all this winning stems from the way that he's playing. And it's really been a joy to watch.
Well, I mean, his point streak, his home point streak reached what, 23 last night.
Yeah,
I mean,
every home game he's had a point in. So my lead was he's worth the price of admission, and it's
yeah,
true.
yeah. I mean, it's been pretty surreal this year. He's been on another level, and I think, I mean, we've always talked about how great he is. He's got the giant contract. But there just seems to be something just a little different with him this season.
I think so, and I remember Nate last year getting the question a lot, like, what do you have to change now that Landeskog's out of the lineup to be a better leader or do what you need to do? And he was always quick to say, hey, I don't need to change anything at all. I just got to be me. But when I look at the way that he's playing right now, I do see a change in him, like being extra Nate, right? Like 110% Nate. Like he's not doing things that we haven't seen him do before. We've never seen him do it this consistently to where it's every night. You're just like, well, of course, MacKinnon's on the score sheet. You know, he's involved in pretty much everything good that the Abs are doing on a nightly basis. And he's just playing so angry as well, right? I mean, there's several games where he's blowing guys up in the neutral zone, you know, not letting opposing teams, you know, connect on easy passes in ways that, you know, he can't play like that every game, but on nights when MacKinnon feels like the team needs it, you know, he's willing to step up and be that guy. So, you know, any way you slice it, he's the leading candidate for MVP. I think he's second in points right now overall in the NHL. And let's just hope he can stay healthy, because that, to me, is the only thing that could derail this season for him and the way that he has this team playing. Because yes, you know, the Avs are still top heavy. They're still not a team that's relying on true depth to win games, but it doesn't matter when you got Nathan MacKinnon, right? And the way that the Avs are, you know, I think second overall in the Western standings behind the Winnipeg Jets right now. You know, they're in great position because of Nate.
And, you know, we've talked about this in the past with MacKinnon, is he's not a vocal leader, but he is a definitely lead by example, look at me, be like me kind of guy.
Yeah. And I've enjoyed watching that, just the little habits. You know, him and Jonathan Drouin are so close, you know, good friends going back to their juniors days. And if you watch Avalanche warmups, those two are the last two guys on the ice pretty much every single game. They're getting shots in. It's Drouin getting rhythm shots to MacKinnon, who's slapping them into the net. You know, these guys like working together and they enjoy working hard, and MacKinnon sets that standard, right? And here we see Drouin having a career year himself, and that shouldn't be a real surprise with the way that Nate is playing and the way that those two guys play off of each other. But yeah, just all the little things that Nate does are really shining through right now.
Well, and you just brought up Drouin. I wanted to ask you, the Avs stole him. Like that was the steal of the offseason.
Right.
For them.
Right. And, you know, it's interesting because if you're another GM in the league, you might think, oh, why didn't we do this? But then you should also think, right. Yeah. He wouldn't have this sort of run without playing with a guy like MacKinnon, getting these top line minutes. You know, maybe Drouin could be as productive as he is right now, playing beside guys who are extremely good. I mean, we'd be remiss to say that's not a big reason why he's playing well when your line mates are some of the best players in the world, but it's their chemistry, right? So yeah, let's say the Devils or, you know, one of these other young contenders, you know, maybe they go out and sign him. One, I don't think that they would give him as much trust that the Avs did right away, giving him those top line minutes and letting it ride early in the year when it wasn't always perfect when Drouin was in those situations. But now, even with Arturi Lehkonen coming back, we think in the next couple weeks here or so, I would expect Drouin to stay on that top line and Lehkonen to join that second group with Val Nichushkin, who's been playing unbelievable, to really give that team a little bit more balance and depth. And that's a credit to Drouin. Who's earned that. You know, he's not getting ice time because he's MacKinnon's buddy. He's getting ice time because he's a really good hockey player.
And you just mentioned Nichushkin, who's been on his own kind of heater here lately. You know, you asked Jared Bednar if he should be an all-star. You know, MacKinnon's an all-star, Makar's an all-star. You could talk about Mikko. You could, you know. So what about Nichushkin, though? Because he's been, I mean, he scored last night, right?
Yeah. I mean, he scored twice, and you know, there's limited spots for the All-Star game. It's a wonky system where every team has to have one representative, so it kind of like shifts the pool where deserving guys aren't going to get in on the first try. Like we assume Cale Makar is going to get voted in, but right now Nathan MacKinnon is the only guy who's actually on the All-Star team from the Avs. But yeah, I mean, is Val forcing his way into that conversation? And that's what I asked Bednar, and I wasn't surprised by the answer, but it was no hesitation. Yes, this guy's an all-star. I mean, watch the way he plays. And, it was a caveat. Jared, it's tough. You're splitting hairs. There's other guys at his position who are really good in this league, two-way power forwards, 200-foot guys. But yeah, the way that Val has stepped up to be that Landeskog, who's, in front of the net, getting those gritty goals, but also setting up his teammates. He's creative on the rush. He's an excellent passer. He's doing all the things that you figure an all-star does for a team like the Avalanche, another cup contending team. So I think it'll be tough. The name recognition among fans might not be as high, and this is a fan vote that gets those last guys in. But the fact that Val's forced his way into the conversation, and now that we have Jared Bednar on record essentially endorsing him, it'll be real interesting to see, if his name rises a little bit when we get those final vote totals from the fans before the All-Star game, the beginning of February here.
You can't trust the fans to vote for anything.
Yeah, I can't trust any online vote ever, too, right?
No.
I don't know. I feel like those things can be swayed. So All-Star games, they got to reformat and figure out a way to make them work. It's nice to have the fans involved, but the best deserving players should be there. And, if MacKinnon, Makar, and Rantanen and or Nichushkin aren't there, I don't know if that's the best list, of them all. So we'll see what happens.
All right, so let's talk about this upcoming road trip. It's a big one. Five games or 6 games? 5 games.
Five games, yeah.
3 through Canada to start: Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, and then through Boston and Philly. This is going to be a pretty tough stretch for the Avs coming up.
It is. They've been such a good home team this year that it's overshadowed some of the eggs that they've laid on the road this season. And it's not going to be easy going into Toronto, going into Montreal. Ottawa's been struggling. I'm looking forward to that Boston game in the TD Garden. I'll be on that road trip working on a story about Jim Montgomery, former DU coach who has the Bruins just humming after winning the Jack Adams Award, and then finishing off against a Flyers team that's in rebuild mode, and the Avs should be favored in that one. But yeah, I think for a team that wants to prove that it's a truly elite, number 1 seed contender, they've got to go on this trip and at least get 3 or 4 out of 5 to really keep that momentum rolling. The Avs have done a good job over the last month or so of avoiding these big, long losing stretches. The games they have lost have been some head scratchers. We brought up the overtime loss in Arizona, but that's one blip on an essentially, really good stretch here. Outside of that 8-4 Panthers loss at home, the Panthers who, are on a hot streak themselves. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I do think that there's still some big questions on this team. Ryan Johansson's ice time just continues to fall. He's not the team's second line center, I think, of the future. That's pretty clear at this point. There's a good chance I think the Avs look in the free agent market before the trade deadline to try to bolster their roster to be aggressive. But let's see. Let's give Ross Colton a little bit of run here and see if he can hold on to that second C spot and thrive. He's shown a lot of promise as a guy who's a crasher who can be real aggressive. But when you're a center, you have a lot more on your plate, and it seems like his game has slowed down a little bit since coming off the wing. So a lot of storylines to follow. But I mean, for nitpicking this roster right now, this team is a wagon. They're rolling, and I just think the rest of the league can see that the Avs are for real right now.
Yeah, the Avs are just 9-7 on the road, but still, I'm sure that'll probably get better as it goes along.
Right, exactly. And that's early in the season.
There's some weird losses in there.
A little road heavy. They've been at home for so long. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's going to be a good test. And I know these guys like going on these Canada swings.
Real quick before we go, did we see this Winnipeg thing coming?
Yeah, it's wild to see how well they're playing, and it's a credit to the coaching staff up there. Connor Hellebuck is a elite goaltender, and I think it shows when you have one of maybe 3 guys in the league who are truly the best at their position at goaltender. They can win you a lot of games. So I'll be curious to see if they can withstand it, just being that they're not a traditional winner in this league yet. But I do enjoy seeing a little bit of parity and some new teams contending with the Avalanche as some of the best in their division and in the conference.
Yeah, because you've got Vancouver over there in the Pacific too. That I don't think anyone really expected that from them either.
Right. Similar blueprint. Quinn Hughes is their stud defenseman who's kind of cut in that Cale Makar form and leads them offensively in a lot of ways. And yeah, to see them kind of have a similar way of getting things done, it's not surprising, especially if the Avs after they won their cup.
All right, Kyle, thanks for coming on and talking some Avs with me. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Apple or Spotify. You can also see us on YouTube. These podcasts are also over there. Make sure to check out all of Kyle's Avs coverage on denvergazette.com. And Kyle, we will try to catch up after the road trip.
Absolutely.